Welcome to the Membership Business Growth Podcast, the #1 podcast for martial arts and fitness business owners. We'll dive deep with industry legends to bring you insider secrets on marketing, sales, retention strategies, and life's balancing act. Get expert tips for business growth right here, right now on the Membership Business Growth Podcast. Let's kickstart the action with your host, Ron Sell.
All right, welcome to the Membership Business Growth Podcast. I'm Ron Sell, and I've got a long-term friend that we haven't even talked to each other in like 10 years, but it's good to reconnect, and that's Michael Mertens. Michael, thanks so much for coming to the podcast today. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to be sharing ideas and time with you again, as always.
Oh, man, yes, that's what it's all about. This podcast is about growth and helping martial arts school owners and instructors to live the life of their dreams, grow, help more people, impact their community. We don't know what's happening in Washington or maybe other parts of the world in politics, but we do know we can do one thing, and that is we can impact the lives in our community through our martial arts school. And so let's do that today. So do me a favor first. For those that are listening that don't know who you are, can you just give me like a 30-second intro to who you are?
Sure. The fast version is that I walked into a Taekwondo classroom for the first time 42 years ago, became a long-term student and, competitor, coach, had that whole aspect. But for over 30 years now, 35 years, this has been my full-time career. And currently I own and operate 5 what we call world-class Taekwondo centers, suburbs of Buffalo, New York. Working with our team and I work with about 1,800 active Taekwondo students. And, I also teach other people some of our principles and procedures through an organization called Taekwondo Professionals. And most of all, I am just a Taekwondo nerd and a Taekwondo lover, passionate about the art, passionate about seeing it taught properly, enjoyed properly, and like you, believing that it can make a huge impact on the lives of our students and the communities that we're in.
Amen, brother. So listen, you just said you own 5 martial arts schools. You have around 1,800 students between those 5 schools. You're in Buffalo, New York. This is pretty awesome, man. So, we need to listen to you. I know you're going to have some good advice here today for us, and I hope people are going to take notes because this is going to be incredible. When we talk about growth, we talk about typically marketing, right? What's the 10 best ways to market your school? What's the latest digital technology that we can use to trick people to click on our ads on Facebook and things like that? And but there's another side of growth that both me and you really are passionate about and that is keeping the students that we already have training for as long as we can, also known as retention. Like, keeping students. I listened the other day to one of my favorite podcasters, and they said it costs 7 times more money, 700% more money to get a new student in your door. They said customer, but new customer in your door than it does to keep the existing ones happy and training. So I think that's a huge benefit for business owners, is that you're going to spend a heck of a lot less money keeping the people that you already have versus trying to constantly, churn out students and replace them with, marketing dollars and effort and time and energy and that kind of stuff. I know you agree with that.
Absolutely. 100% agree. When we talk, I always think that it's important to get leverage on yourself or to get leverage on the people that you're speaking with. And so to me, retention is the X factor in growing your martial arts school. There's going to be so many different reasons. I mean, as a business person, you just said it a moment ago, right? If you've got money coming in one door and money going out the other door in the forms of, members, it's hard to grow your business. As an instructor, do you want to work with, students for 1 year or 3 years or 5 years? I'm going to say everybody's going to want to have worked with them longer to teach them more of the art. People will talk about sometimes that they're having trouble finding or developing staff. Well, again, if you don't have anybody that stayed with you for a long period of time, you're not going to have anybody to turn into instructors. And, in terms of making impact in your community, we want to have a vibrant body of students that have been with us for a long time. I do like to point out that, hey, we've got all these students. Well, one of the biggest things we do a big fundraiser for our local children's hospital every year. We raise 60 to 70,000 each year. We've raised 1.5 million in the past 30 years. So the impact that's made when you hold on to and build your community is just dramatic. So as a business person, as an instructor, as someone trying to grow, you got to get jazzed up about student retention because to me, it's the biggest X factor there is.
Do you ever, I 100% agree with every single thing that you just said what you just said now. The other thing I'd like to point out too is like, I don't know about you, but when I lose a student, it hurts. Like, I kind of take it personal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why. And, I've heard other consultants say, never take it personal. Everyone's going to quit eventually. Like, they've given us all these things to think about. But I mean, it still does for me. To keep a student longer would be better for my soul.
Well, if you walk in the grocery store sometimes and you see somebody who was a student of yours for like 3 months, whether they were a kid or an adult, and you know that they came in and they came out, and essentially you didn't achieve that which you wanted to achieve with them. That adult didn't get fit, or that child's confidence didn't get improved. You feel like there's unfinished business. It's absolutely different than if I come upon one of my students. I know we've all had that story that, your student who grew up and became a black belt and went off to college, and then they come back to you 3 years later, 5 years later, even 10 years later and say, hey, what a tremendous impact, the time I had in your school made on me. So we certainly want to have mission accomplished with as many of our students as possible. And like you said, you'll put your head down better on the pillow at night compared to if you're just churning through, students for a short period of time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree with all that. So, let's talk about retention and what that is. Okay. So, and how we kind of calculate retention. Forever. I mean, I've been in this industry 30 years. I know I look pretty young because I am, but I started young is what the problem. But, we had consultants and teachers that would say 5% churn rate. I call it churn rate because I'm a software guy, but 5%, quit rate, or in the software industry call it churn because you're just churning through people, which sounds really terrible to do, especially if you love people like we do. We don't want to churn through those people. We want to keep them around, but we want to keep that way lower than 5%, in my opinion.
Yes,
I've seen schools because I have access to a lot of data. I've got data on about 5,000 plus martial arts schools across the world, and I look at raw data a lot of times, and I see some schools have 9%, 10% attrition rate or churn rate. I see some people that have 5%, and I've done all the number crunching. And if you're around 5%, like, we've heard all of our lives, there's going to come a time when what we call flatline. Like, you're never going to grow past this. And if you've ever been an instructor that's like, man, we're up and we're down, we're sinking 1 month and we're swimming good the next month, or it seems like my business just is up and down. It's like this roller coaster. You've ever heard that? I think the very first place that you should look at is lowering your churn rate or your quit rate down to something, better, like 2%, 3%, even less if you can. Inside of Spark, I did a little SQL statement in our database to pull back some data, and I found out that we had over 1,000 people inside of Spark that had a less than 2% churn rate, which means to me, what that meant was it's possible. Like, it's possible to have a low churn rate. And what's also crazy is most of these schools had 200, 300, 400, 500 students in them. So we're not talking about little 50 school that could easily do 1% churn rate, because it's when you have less than 100 students, it's easy to keep your churn rate low. I mean, you have hardly anybody lose, right? But when you have 200, 300, 400 people, then it's very difficult. You have to really put some effort into lowering that churn rate. So how do you figure out, Michael, how do you figure out your churn rate in your school or your quit rate in your school, your percentage?
That's great. Well, first of all, you're already hitting one of the key points that we want to talk about, which is anyone that achieves any type of goal has to deal in specifics, right? And they have to have numbers in front of them, right? Somebody says, hey, I wish I could, I just need to lose weight, right? Okay, well, if you lost half a pound, would you be happy? Oh, I need to make more money. Okay, well, if you made $2 more, would you be happy? So any type of goal guru or coach is going to tell you, do you have a specific number in mind? We currently, and again, we have larger schools with 300, 400 members in them. We currently target 3%. Right. And I agree with you that there are some people out there that get down into the 2%. I haven't seen too many people anywhere lower than 2%. We've had months where we hit 2%. And again, think about for us, what that means is in a 400-person school, we're not looking to inactivate more than 12 students. In a 300-person location, we're not looking to inactivate more than 9 students. And that means for all causes. That means if they move away, there's no excuse. Hey, we know some people are going to move away. Some people's financials are going to change. Some people are going to be injured or come up with a condition that they can't change. That's included in that 3% for us. And then once you have the target, and we'll talk about different strategies and methods, but how clearly are you keeping that number in front of you as a metric, right? As a KPI, a key performance indicator of your business. And so for me, with 5 locations, that number's reported on daily. I don't want to get to the end of the month and then my staff say, oh, by the way, we inactivated 20 people this month or 12 people this month. Every single day, they have the number. Okay, the goal for the month is not to inactivate more than 12 students. Today, we inactivated 2 people. They moved away. They no longer had interest. Whatever it was, month to date, we're at 8 people. As we sit here this moment, I'm happy to say that 5 out of 5 schools are at or below their goal. It's almost the end of the month, only 2 days left in the month. And I believe all 5 of my schools will be under a 3% attrition rate. So as you said, it's possible. You got to you need to be tracking it. And some people might be stunned when they first start that they are in that 5, 6, 7%. And you just have to know, we use a definition too, depending on what kind of memberships you have. But, if someone's not been to class in the last month to 6 weeks, even if they've got some kind of active membership, maybe they paid in full for the year or so, we're still going to inactivate them. We're going to have reach outs to them, but we're going to inactivate them because we're really not calling that one of our current members. So I think, getting clear on that number, having it set up as a goal, and then actively looking at it on a daily basis, keeping the monthly average, keeping where you are year to date. That just by itself does a world of good for schools focusing their effort in this area.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You look at this at a daily basis. T. Harv Eker, one of my favorite authors, wrote a book called, I don't remember the name of the book, Millionaire Mindset or something.
Millionaire Mind, you're right. Yes, sir.
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. All right, good deal. I totally redeemed myself right there. One of my favorite persons, don't remember the name of his book. But anyways, he always says, where attention goes, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. And what I love about that is like just caring about something and putting your focus on it, you start to see results in those areas. So it's crazy that you guys are looking at this on a daily basis, because you're really putting a lot of effort and time and energy into making sure that you know exactly where you are when it comes to your retention. I love that.
Yes, sir. Well, like you just said, right? It's a focus. So if you said, hey, I'm trying to lose weight, okay, and I weigh in once a month to see how I did, right? Or I total up my inactives at the end of the month to see how I did. I think there's a lot of lost learning opportunities there. So we're looking at, hey, wouldn't we record or report new members on a daily basis? Oh, we signed up 2 new people. Okay. But we also inactivated a family of 3. Well, then we know that we're at -1, for the month. And it is that constant battle back and forth between old members and new members, keeping your current members and, bringing in new members. So, and daily keep staff a little bit more accountable. Again, at any given time, there's someone, it's been 2 weeks since they've been here, 3 weeks since they've been here. We've been kind of talking to them or whatever. We wanted to avoid cleanup months. And cleanup months would be, oh, we only inactivated 10 this month, 10 this month, 10 this month, 10 this month. And they're like, oh yeah, we kind of went in the database, and oh, by the way, we inactivated 43 people this month who haven't been here in a while.
Yeah.
I hated seeing that on our stats when something like came out. And so that's why
because then I see that happen all the time. I'll look at people's numbers because I love studying numbers and see, what are the best schools doing versus what are the ones that want to be the best schools. And you'll see where you'll see this 3%, 4%, 2%, 4, it's kind of within that range. And then one month you see 17%. I'm like, right. That's a cleanup month.
Yes, sir.
That Correct. Was where, and the problem with that is that now you're not really getting a very good, clear picture of what your retention is.
Correct.
If you're letting memberships stay active for months after the person last attended, your stats are going to be off. And if your stats are off, it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever, I had a boat, my boat, the gas gauge didn't work on the boat. And, half the time we were out there in the lake having fun, it would quit and we're like, oh, there's no gas and we're in the middle of the lake. That's what's going to happen to your martial arts school. If you're not keeping accurate numbers, and if you're not doing this on, I love how you say daily basis, but at least a weekly basis, you're not turning people off because they haven't been there. How long did you say? A month or 6 weeks?
For us, we understand that beyond their month of tuition, that sometimes things happen. They were out of town, extended injury or whatever. So around the 6-week number, I start getting a little bit squirrely. And again, we even track total active and 30-day active. Means, okay, how many do you have in your database? And then how many have been in your doors on a classroom floor in the last 30 days? And for whatever reason, we started looking at it, and we actually work with the number for that one of a 93%. So I want to make sure I've seen 93% of my people within the last 30 days. And if I start seeing, and some of our schools are at 95, 96%, so they'll say, hey, there's only 20 or 30, there's only in a 300 person school, maybe there's only 20 people that we haven't seen in the last month. Okay, I get that, because people do have things that come up that could still be long-term. And sometimes it's situational. Hey, this person's been our student for the last 8 years. They haven't been here in the last 7 weeks. They've got a parent in the hospital, or they've got other things going on. Okay, I really believe they're coming back. A white belt, a yellow belt that hasn't been there for 6 weeks, chances are that they're gone already. So everybody will be best served by really looking at these stats very carefully, because as you said, from there, then you can improve. And when it's not the cleanup strategy, the other thing bad about the cleanup strategy is how much of a discussion do you have when you inactivated 45 people? But if you inactivated 2 people, say, okay, what belt did they come from? What was the situation, right? Because we're looking for lessons learned, right? What's the lesson learned from this week's inactivations?
Oh, I love that. So for those that are listening that are using Spark, my software that I love so much, we have those stats right in the dashboard. So you can see last 30 days attended. You click that number, it'll give you a list of every single person. Last 7 days attended, and then also what you're claiming to be your active count, right? So I love looking at that and comparing. And I love how you said, some of your schools are at 95, 96% of your active count. I think that's awesome. Hey, let's dive in, if we can, on some of the strategies that we can use to just keep people training longer.
Yes, sir.
Like, how do we make sure that we're keeping track of these folks? I mean, we now know what it's defined, what our goals are, but how do we make it better? What do you think?
Well, so I'm going to say that some of the biggest categories are going to be education, right? And by education, I don't mean the martial art education of the different movements, but what methods do you have to educate your parents and your students about the value and benefit of what they're doing, and the idea that this is going to be something you do long term. A lot of people have changed to month-to-month memberships, which I have to admit that we for 27 years, the shortest term membership we had in our school was for a year, and the majority of people were on 3-year term, black belt memberships. But we, like a lot of people, some because of the pandemic, some just because of the way retailing tends to be done now. We now offer primarily month-to-month memberships at a higher tuition rate, but we do have, that's the majority. But how are you educating and sharing the vision with families to tangibly let them see and understand better that martial arts works best when it's done long term?
Yeah.
And so in our enrollment process, we have, a chart on the wall of our white belt through black belt curriculum. We have professionally made belt displays, because when you actually tie belts and put them up on the wall, they actually look terrible. They're small, they get dusty, whatever. At our belt testings every single month, we are very personalized, even as large as our schools are. I just belt tested 100 students. It took 6 hours because it's like 6 students at a time. We're doing old form testing forms and talking to each student. We're congratulating them. We're talking about black belt and beyond. And something practical maybe for people to think about, I'm now an empty nester. My boys are much older, but when my wife and I were first getting married, she bought a book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, right? Which is a book for expectant mothers. And I kind of got inspired by the idea to do, okay, what to expect as a white belt, as a yellow belt, as a green belt. And so we have letters that we hand out at each different belt rank when people change colors. We just spend a lot of time in whether it's in our displays, our member communication, our sales process, our belt testing process. I just had black belt testing this weekend, and it's still the same thing for black belt retention. How valuable is it to continue training long term, right? Sometimes people say, Master Mertens, you're crazy about Taekwondo. You're such a big fan of Taekwondo. I'm not a fan of one Taekwondo lesson. If you took one lesson, it would be cute. It would be fun. It might be a nice little sweat. But the value that we have as martial arts school owners is that we have this long-term process we take people through. And so, in my opinion, that should be shouted from the rooftops in all of your materials and every time you're in front of your people. We are here to work with you long-term. The accomplishment of black belt and beyond is what's going to dramatically improve your health, your confidence, your fitness, your focus. That would be messaging wise the first recommendation I would have, that even if you're doing month-to-month memberships, are you just making, hey, we'll try it out for a month. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, fine. Say, no, our memberships are month-to-month. Our mindset and our goals with every student are long-term.
That's a great point. I remember my dad. I don't know if you never met my dad before he passed on, but when he came back from Korea in the early 60s, maybe, he literally created like 100 schools. And I'm like, I always look back and I go, Dad, how did that happen? Like, how did you get 100 schools under your tutelage? And he goes, well, everybody that walked in, I looked at him as I thought, I was like, that's a future instructor right there. And I was like, oh, wow, what a great mindset. Like, our mindset is long-term. My dad's mindset was, how can I make that person an instructor so we can open another school? Because I want more people in more cities and more towns to get the benefits that I got. Right. So it's powerful. So what's next? What else can we do? I mean, so we get programs. We have this long-term mindset.
That's right. So that communication has to happen. Then obviously you've got to have a classroom that the 2 pillars, I guess, I would say, are fun and progress, right? People have to be enjoying themselves and they have to be seeing progress. Now, one thing you may find interesting is the amount of time that I'm talking to my instructors about classes have to be more fun. They got to be more fun. You got to have more variety. You got to have less repetition, is actually very rare. We actually think a little bit differently about this. You mentioned about being out on your boat earlier, and I'm not certain. I don't know, how you do it, but you may say, oh, I'm going out on the boat and we're going to be out in the middle of the lake and we're going to sit there under the sun and we're going to chat with friends and we're going to have a great time. And I'll say, wait, don't you need more variety than that? Don't you need some new people you never met to come before? Or don't you need some different music you never heard before? Like, no, we kind of get into a pattern of things that we like. So for us, when we refer to fun in the classroom, we think about a couple main things. Number one, personalization is extremely important. A lot of people think that in the larger schools, you mentioned it, the 300, 400, 500 person schools, sometimes have better retention than the 80-person school because they do really know and focus on their people better. They're less casual about it, right? They're thinking, hey, this is an important relationship. I need to make sure I'm greeting students on the way in. I'm saying goodbye to them on the way out, that my staff and I are enthusiastic about working with them, that the student to teacher ratios are very important to make sure people are getting personalized attention. And for us, we think there's variety fun or there's entertainment fun, but the number one fun is the fun of learning, right? That I couldn't do this technique before and now I can. That I felt awkward or off balance and now I feel more coordinated. That I tried to break this board and I couldn't, and then I learned how to adjust my body and now I can. So when we talk about progress, some people talk about what do they call it, bullshito, or belt factory schools, or dojo factories, or something like that. No, we want real progress. Students should be advancing at a pace that is fair to them and fair to an understanding of what they're doing. And you've got to have set marks for everything. I mean, we have different tips and belt levels for white belt all the way through fourth degree black belt. I do think that's another real quick point, is you usually have in quantity students that you have a good curriculum for. And what I mean by that is, when we said, hey, let's have a 4 and 5 year old program, but we'll just let them have some fun and whatever, but there was really no real curriculum. And then we just waited for them to age up and go into our regular program. Didn't have a lot in that program. Same when, for after black belt, if we, just said, hey, now you can do more tournaments, or maybe you can be an instructor, but there wasn't really a curriculum. We didn't tend to keep people that long. And now we're just starting to see now fourth degree and fifth degree students who were never instructors, who were never competitors, but because we have a well-defined curriculum, we're keeping them moving. So you're going to evaluate your own sense of fun and progress. How are you making classes fun? And again, a more deeper, richer fun than just, hey, we're going to put on different music today, or wear funny, kids get to wear a funny hat to class. To be honest, we never do any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, instructors aren't cracking jokes. Instructors aren't trying to be funny.
That's right.
Class is just fun. We're smiling, we're sweating, we're learning, we're making progress. All of that's fun.
Yes, sir. So fun, and to me, the two, that's two of the other big pillars will be one other section too, but a sense of fun and progress, and remembering that you have to revisit that with each student, right? We just promoted 74, I believe it was, people to black belt through fourth dan this past Saturday. Why are they going to stay with us? The majority of them will renew. Why? Because a new sense of fun and progress, a new curriculum. The instructors are still excited about them, and they obviously watched the other people testing for the other degrees and said, hey, I want to do that. I want to learn that next set of skills.
When I was a kid and I earned my black belt, I think I was 12 or something like that. I earned a junior black belt. There's only like one form, I think, between first degree and second degree, or maybe it was 2 or something like that. And then when I created my school, I'm like, man, we just gotta put more stuff in here that's more fun, that you can learn more things. And we did. And that's when our black belts, when we had that curriculum, like you said, it was laid out. There was like more to learn, more to do, more experiences to have. We started seeing second degree and third degrees and fourth degrees being promoted because of the curriculum, for sure.
Yep, 100, yeah, that I absolutely know to be true. And then that also, brings out the point that who's responsible for the day-to-day, and this may be a controversial subject, but who's responsible for the day-to-day experience and quality of experience in your school? If you belong to some different organizations, they can be a factor, but ultimately it has to be you. We are a WT style of Taekwondo school. I grew up being an Olympic sparring level of competitor, competed at the Olympic Training Center, was a collegiate national bronze medalist. In our sparring classes, we don't kick to the head. I loved kicking people in the head. I love watching a sparring match where people get kicked in the head.
And hook kick, buddy.
However, I determined as a martial arts school owner that for my majority recreational population, that's probably not something that they want to do. The accountant dad and the architect mom, is not looking to get kicked in the face by somebody else. And so we made that adjustment. Similarly, we do not actually follow the current Olympic style Taekwondo rules. My mentor and former business partner, Grandmaster Chung, wasn't that crazy about the adjustments that were made. And we said, hey, we're going to keep going with what we're going. Now, by comparison, we also teach some Hapkido for our first degrees. We added some Kumdo in for our second degrees. So we added or removed elements that we felt best fit our vision and best fit the population of students that we were teaching. And I think that's important too, because you can probably find 50 students out there who will do whatever you tell them, no matter what. They'll do push-up on concrete, on knuckles. They'll fight full contact without any safety gear on or whatever. But if you want to have a thriving, larger community, you're probably going to have to make you need to know your target market, right? So again, if it's a recreational, fitness-oriented, art form-oriented population, I think you need to visit sparring. You need to visit the quantity of curriculum. You need to visit the elements of curriculum. And again, the phrase that I often use is, how does this serve us? How does this serve our students? And if it doesn't, maybe it needs to be adjusted.
I think yes. And I think it also needs to be continuously adjusted too.
Great point.
Let's say we try we experiment with something. Hey, we're going to stop kicking to the head. All right. And 6 months from now, you're going to say, was that a good decision? Did that help us? Did it hurt us? Look at that. Maybe make a different decision. In 6 months from, we move around some forms. Maybe we teach it in different areas, and you continually look back and see, hey, did it work? Did it give us the desired outcomes that we were looking for? Do we have better retention? Do we have better looking students? Is our students able to protect themselves better? Are they enjoying the classes better? Like asking these questions about your curriculum and continue making adjustments until it's perfect.
Right. And that hasn't, in 30, I mentioned that my Korean grandmaster and my mentor became my business partner, or I became his business partner. One thing that I always greatly appreciated and respected about him was his pursuit of innovation.
Innovation.
Right? And innovation isn't, sometimes people talk about revolution. I like evolution rather than revolution. So we don't normally come in and go, you know what, all of this is terrible, throw it all out. You got to do things completely differently. Well, there's very few students, parents, or even instructors in a school who want to be told, guess what, everything you've been invested in, everything that you've chosen to do, it's all wrong. We're going in a completely different, that's a revolution. That's like a new government coming in and taking over everything.
Yeah.
But evolution, where you say, we're trying to emphasize this area of sparring. We're going to add this type of weapon training in. We're going to take this out. And so we have, in fact, and we're just about to do it with a curriculum change that's coming up. We are going to be removing some elements from our curriculum. We've added elements to our curriculum. And I anticipate that we will be removing, adding, and enhancing elements of our curriculum and all elements of our business forever. Right? All you need to do is say, hey, would you like to, can I give you an iPhone for free? Oh, sure. But I'm going to give you the one from 10 years ago. You probably don't want it. Hey, I got a pair of Air Jordan sneakers. Oh yeah. Yeah. But they're 15 years old. Okay. Geez, the sole on those doesn't have the same kind of.
Yeah. But Michael Jordan wore those. So I still take them.
Worth a lot. There's classic value.
Well, anybody that's considering changing their curriculum, I think it's a great idea, but I wouldn't necessarily give you the advice of letting everybody know you're changing it. What's beautiful about what we can do is we can just try new things without letting everybody know that we're removing other things to replace it with. I think students love to show up and learn. So, that's my advice to anybody that is considering to looking at your curriculum with deep eyes and saying, does this serve our students? And if it doesn't, instead of telling everybody it's out, it's gone, you just teach what you want to teach for a while. And then you could revisit that later. You don't have to shoot yourself in the foot by announcing your departures. Good deal.
Right. Makes sense.
In all of my research, which I do a lot, I'm a numbers person. I know you are too, Michael. What's nice about me is I have access to 5,000 plus martial arts schools across the world, and I can look at data on a much bigger scale. And what I've found is that most of the quits happen in the first 100 days.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
across everywhere. So I'm thinking that we always hear about low hanging fruit. Okay. Low hanging fruit is like the fruit, the benefit you can get really simple, right? Really easy, really quick. And I always think about if someone wants to go from a 5% churn rate to a 3%, all you got to do is really focus on those first 100 days.
Hmm.
If you had a 10% and you want to go down to 5% churn rate or quit rate, focus on those first 100 days. First 100 days after someone enrolls with you. Would you think that that's correct?
I think it can make a dramatic difference. And, we looked at it, obviously we didn't have the same type of level as you of data set available to us, but we said at one point, hey, let's look at and this is being transparent, right? Hey, let's look at the stats for, this particular location or whatever. And how many white belts did we lose?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say the number may have been something like 58 on a year, right? 58 people were white belts, didn't even achieve their first belt, and they quit. And okay, let's look at for that same location, the number of red belts who quit, who are much further along, have a much more advanced curriculum, have to wait a lot longer in between belt promotions. And I think the number was like 6, and it just tells you how much more dramatically those students are indoctrinated into the program. The parent support is there. They've kind of said, hey, this is what we're doing. Maybe we've stopped playing baseball or gymnastics, or those things take a backseat because their Taekwondo training is their main focus. So we borrowed, like you were talking about churn, we also borrowed a phrase from the, I guess, software industry, and that's onboarding, right? How do we get somebody more onboarding, right? Not just joining, not just signing up, but how do we get somebody more familiar with the process, making sure that they're really feeling like they're part of the, world-class Taekwondo family. And so I can point out that, maybe some tips might be, the one-on-one, we still tend to do one-on-one lessons or very, very small group lessons for people when they're first getting started. We want to get their name on their uniform when they first start. We want to put them on our Facebook page if the parents, of course, approve it, which usually they do, to welcome them to the school. We're going to be rather assertive about making sure that we stay on top of their progress, right? Who's responsible for progress? Oh, the student, the parent, and the instructor. But if you said, okay, yeah, so it's 33% each. I always give the example to my team. If I went scuba diving for the first time, which I know nothing about, zero about, and I've never even done it, I hope that the scuba diver instructor wouldn't say, now, Mike, it's 50% your responsibility, 50% my responsibility. I'm like, then I think I'm going to die, right?
Yeah,
Because
I got a 50% chance of failing here.
of failing.
Yeah.
So we have to be real strong on that initial progress. We offer a parents workshop, which is just a 45-minute session for parents to learn about how to support their child. So you're right, that first 100 days is absolutely important. And now here's one thing, again, maybe controversial. We always had a white belt to yellow belt process that took anywhere from 3 to 4 months. And sometimes you'd have a young person a little more learning challenged or just not all that athletic. Maybe sometimes they take 5 months. And now you're looking at very high chance of dropout. We only very recently added a white belt with a yellow stripe through it and said, guess what? Now you can earn your first belt in 6 to 8 weeks. Did we reduce our quality? No. In fact, we probably lengthened it because now to become a yellow belt is going to take longer because you got to achieve that first belt. But we said, hey, what if we give them less of the requirements to do, right? Because we use a 20-move form. We use one-step sparring. We had Korean terms. We had a pretty lengthy yellow belt requirement. We said, okay, rather than water that down, rather than make that same accomplishment happen in 6 or 8 weeks, how about we cut it in 2 parts? Right? And that seems to have improved our white belt retention. Our post-black belt retention, I personally am not have not been convinced yet of rotating curriculum for color belts, but it didn't take me long to be convinced of rotating curriculum for black belts. And so now, like I just told you a moment ago, now about 95% of our first degree black belts tested 4 months later for what we call a first degree level 1. They still have 3 more years, almost 3 years to go to earn their second degree, but we're going to test them 6 times every 4 months, to keep that progress. So there's definitely room for people to analyze with curriculum design, how to improve their numbers and still feel comfortable with the quality of training, right? Because we don't want quality of training to go out the window, but remember, what quality of impact are you making if the student's not there anymore? To say,
Right.
oh, I got this great curriculum if they only stay. Well, again, do they have more responsibility for retaining themselves, or do you as the instructor or owner have more responsibility? And curriculum design has to be, and it certainly needs to be an area to look at as well.
If we want to be a successful business owner, matter of fact, if we want to be a successful person, we have to take what's called extreme ownership. And if you haven't read Jocko's book on extreme ownership, I suggest that you do. Matter of fact, I would listen to the book and read the book because it will change your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're talking about here. When we're talking about, keeping students longer and whose responsibility is that, we have to take ownership over that, because they don't know how, just like you said, if you're going scuba diving, you don't know how to save your life. You don't know the right steps to take. Our students don't know that either. So we have to, as a full team of instructors and school owners, we have to take that ownership over. And the biggest reason why we must do that is because we definitely want to impact their life. We don't want this sink or swim mentality where, like, to teach my toddler how to swim, I'm just going to throw her into the pool and say, hope you make it. And if
Right.
they do, we're like, oh, awesome. My kid's going to be able to save their life. We have to take the opposite. We wouldn't do that. We would get in the pool and we'd let them swim 6 inches and we would be like, wow, you're amazing. You got to me, right? And eventually, a foot, and then eventually 3 feet, and eventually they're swimming by themselves. We would take that approach because we care and we love our kids, right? Same approach, same type of extreme ownership has to happen in our martial arts school. And it's not watering down curriculum. It's not, it's not being that belt factory. It's actually, you're doing much better service to your students by breaking things down into smaller things and actually caring if they stay long or not, because that's going to create some better students long term. 100%. I don't know. I went off on that tangent because I saw yesterday in some group on Facebook where they're like, hey, retention is what it is. Let them quit if they are not tough enough. If they're not strong enough, it's not our fault. These parents, they're raising terrible kids. All these kids they just want everything and they're entitled to it. And I was like, man, what a terrible attitude to have if you're really an instructor. If you're an instructor, you care about that person. You do whatever it takes to encourage, inspire, to make them better, to not water down things, but make it where it's easier for them to take a small step towards the right direction.
Absolutely. I mean, what if you went to your child's elementary school and they said, Mr. Sal, I'm happy to meet with you today, but just need to help you understand your child is too dumb to learn math. So I've decided to just let him sit in the corner and color, during this, because he's not capable of teaching math. I'm not going to adjust my math teaching methods at all. I'm not going to use any kind of different explanations. I'm not going to give him simpler problems to work on until he's mastered the basics. I'm just going to teach math the way I want to teach math. And if he can handle it, fine. If he can't handle it, fine. Who would come out of that and say, what a great math teacher, what a passionate teacher, what about someone who really believes in what they're doing and wants to create results? And again, the reality is, right, when people look at our, again, we own recreational Taekwondo schools for the population. What percentage of my people are going to become Olympians? None of them. What percentage of people are going to be ready for the UFC? None of them. Does that mean that the training is not valuable? That the health, the flexibility, the increased energy the adults feel on a daily basis doesn't impact their life? Does it mean that the child who was too shy to raise their hand, who can now speak up for themselves and perform in front of 1,000 people audience at their black belt testing, that there's not impact? So it's sometimes a little simplistic, right, to say, well, if we're not training people to be ultimate fighters, we're failing. The only people who are ultimate fighters are ultimate fighters. The only people who are Olympians are Olympians. Martial art training, Taekwondo training has a lot more value than just that, right? Should self-defense be part of it? Yes, but I'll still say I don't know how many 8-year-olds are going to be able to defend themselves against. I don't know about you, sir. I'm 6'1", 230 pounds. I'm not looking for a 6-year-old to protect himself physically against a grown attacker, right? That's not the focus at that time, right? You get older, you get stronger, and you have these skills. Sure, that's available. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a checkup from the neck up of what people are thinking about, what's really their goal with their school, and how they're going to um, again, make the vision they want to have happen into the world. And for their students, if you are an Olympic coach, if you are a UFC coach, then you are looking for people to perform that level of physical intensity, and that's the goal, and that's the purpose. But certainly, it's not the only purpose for our schools and the way that we run.
Yes, sir. Well, this has been valuable. I hope people took notes, and if they didn't, rewind this and listen to it again. This has been a good deep dive on how to get more people training longer, getting more benefits, and impacting your community in a powerful way, and at the same time increasing your business. I think both are important. Would you rather impact lives or make a lot of money? How about both? How about we do both?
Yes, sir.
How do we do both? Because that's how it's supposed to work in this world, is that the bigger the help that we've given to other people, the bigger our bank accounts. Doesn't work the other way around, at least not long term. So, Michael, listen, if someone wanted to to learn more about what you do and how you do it, can you give them some contact info?
Sure. So in addition to, just running my own schools, which people sometimes come and visit, and they're more than welcome to if they find themselves in the Buffalo, New York area, they can stop by and visit, spend the day with us, watch our classes, watch anything that they want to see. But in addition, I do run an organization called Taekwondo Professionals. And people can find that at taekwondoprofessionals.com. We offer resources and coaching and an annual conference each June. It is Taekwondo specific, but certainly if someone is in that particular martial art, we've got over 100 schools from coast to coast that, work together with us. And, we focus on, a win-win type of scenario. Again, good for the instructors and students and good for the staff as well. And certainly they can find out more about us by visiting taekwondoprofessionals.com.
Oh, that's awesome. So we, Spark is doing a Thrive event 3 times a year. Maybe next one that we do, we'd love to have you as our speaker.
I'd be honored by that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I appreciate that.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And let's do this again. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Great. Me too.
Thanks for joining us on the Membership Business Growth Podcast. We hope you take what you learned and use it to propel your business to new heights. For more information, episodes, show notes, and to get social, hit us at membershipbusinessgrowth.com. Membershipbusinessgrowth.com. If you want to go deeper or send us comments, you can email ron@sparkmembership.com. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Membership Business Growth Podcast with Ron Sell. Thanks again for listening.